you have any question, please feel free to jot down and ask during the sessions. And because this is Malaysia, we know food is a priority. Yes. Refreshment will be available after the session end as well. And in case of an emergency, please follow the exit sign towards the main staircase. And lastly, may I kindly request everyone to switch your phone to silence mode. Thank you for your cooperation. Today is a special day for AICPA CIMA and Michael Page, as we officially launched our new joint report, Bridging Malaysia Finance Talent Gap, Thriving Through Transitions. This report is a result of a meaningful collaboration between AICPA CIMA and Michael Page. As part of the development process, we hosted 2 roundtables in September 2025, bring together finance leader, HR professional, employer, and academicians. The insight from this roundtable actually forms the conversation what we have today. And we are thank you for our roundtable participants for contribute to the insight to make this report a success. And at this point, I would like to invite everyone to scan this QR code to download the reports. Today's forum is designed to dive even deeper into the finding and explore what's changing between now and 2030, which capability matter the most, and what organization can do now to build a future-ready finance workforce. To lead today's discussion, we are pleased to have our moderator, Venkat Ramanan, Vice President, APAC Region at AICPA CIMA. Please join me in welcome Venkat. Venkat leads regional strategy and works closely with employer, university, policymaker to build future-ready finance talent across Asia. Joining Venkat today are 3 distinguished panelists. Jared Johnson, Director, Michael Page Malaysia. Jared leads senior finance recruitment and brings deep insight into talent trend, employer expectation, and shifts in finance capability across Malaysian market. Next, Rafida Jumal, Vice President, Transformation, Digital, Control at Shell. Rafida is a transformation leader with extensive experience in finance operation, digital transformation, and capability building within large international teams. Last but not least, Sheikh Farouk, Chairman of Impact Integrated and CEO Terengganu Football Club. Sheikh Farouk is a purpose-driven leader with experience in organizational transformation, governance, and youth development across both corporate and public sector. With that, I would like to hand over to Venkat.
Good morning, all. He had to kindly remind us food is critical for us, right? And when he said something about switching off your phones, I can't remember the last time I ever had my phone on non-silent mode. I remember the time when we had Nokias and the other phones that we used to buy ringtones. Now our default mode is on silent. All right, so thank you for joining us in terms of today's conversation. We're talking about the bridging the talent gap. And for you as members, there's curiosity. For you as academics, you're like, what's it going to be? For you as employers, you're going to go, how would it change my approach and how I think about people that I recruit and my own finance function? This is on consistent background noise at our home. Friends or Modern Family. And you know who watches it? Every day, in the morning, afternoon, night, my wife. I don't know why. At least now I know why. She'll sit and work, and she'll have this at the background. Some days when she feels stressed, she'll put this on. And I said, when they pulled out Friends from Netflix, she was very upset. And I kept asking, why are you watching it? Why are you consistently watching it? She says, only one thing I know about this program, there's certainty. I know every episode how it ends. I know every phrases that it ends. I know what they're going to say next. I said, why is that important to you? She said, because you watch all the uncertainty crap. I don't want to have anxiety. I want to have certainty. I want to have happiness. So when I start, I know what the end is. Tough, right? Because we live in a world where we have been plagued with the term uncertainty quite often, and you all evolve around that term uncertainty. But uncertainty is not something new. It has been there, world wars, it has been there through famine, it has been part of our lives. So the only certainty that we know will be, it's always going to be uncertain. I'll browse through the report very quickly before we get into the conversation to set some preamble for you. The findings of the report are not a surprise, but we just need it validated. That's, I think, Jared, how this would approach, right? So we find ourselves to say that we have to move from scorekeepers to providing value. That's known. No more do we live in a world where what you learned is what you do now, and the report basically pushes that there'll be AI and automation at a faster rate. The concept here is called the Chief Value Officer. That means the CFO has to provide value. That's a given. The Chief Financial Officer who does not provide value is an expensive bookkeeper at the end of the day, a different way of looking at it. The report also looks at companies, nearly 53 of them find a struggle to hire the right talent or to find talent. 53%. Can you imagine? 44% of them find it struggle to retain people. Oh, that's a cyclical loop. It's very simple because you're always going to get paid higher for good talent, so it's hard to retain them unless you have a structure put in place. So this is not a surprise. It is just the percentages that evolve around this. Solutions, well, they say you got to develop your managers fast. You got to train them. You got to skill them fast. It's also saying that employers have to lead in terms of the training. You got to push them. It's not somebody else tells you what needs to be done. You got to drive it. The report also says the executive need to lead in terms of upskilling themselves differently. If neither one of us know AI or Gen AI, and we can't lead our organizations and the functions that we talk about. So we have to be leading from the front. And last point is, it's not only supporting national initiatives, but I think we also need to advocate for national initiatives on this to be centered around most important things around talent. I'll end with this one, and we'll go into the conversation. This is an interesting slide. I mean, there's this gentleman called Noel Targo. He's a friend of us for AICP and CIMA, and those who did the professional qualification in 2019 and way before, he's the one who came up with the competency framework. He categorizes the skills matrix wonderfully. He calls it the 2x2. That means skills needed now in the current ecosystems, skills needed in the future ecosystems. So skills needed in the current ecosystems is low, skills needed in the future ecosystems is low, is redundant. Skills needed in the current ecosystem is high, skills needed in the future ecosystems is low. He calls it steady skills. Skills needed in the current ecosystem high, skills needed in the future ecosystems high, he calls them core skills. And skills needed in the future ecosystem high, current low, emerging skills. Now, scary part is, how many of our people that we work with have redundant skills? Scary part is, how many of us have steady skills? Skills that are very technically proficient, that'll get us through now, but won't get us through future. How many of us are investing ourselves in terms of developing core skills, things needed now and things needed in the future? Core skills are what keeps us alive. Core skills are what allows us to innovate, drive organizations forward. And steady skills, emerging skills are where all of us go to conferences, listen curiously what they're talking about the future, take part in panel discussions and ask questions about what do you think the world will be like in 5 years? scary part is, right now, from redundant skills, the steady skills move faster to redundant skills more than ever. And core skills can move into redundant skills faster as well. So that's just a thought for us to have. So I'm going to look at the panelists and ask you one common question to set the tone. Budget is an interesting component of all our life. Budget, in a way, sometimes feels it's a right to use, but it's not necessarily the case. And talent and skills development budget is something that we have, right? I mean, people is unfortunately a cost. It's not a balance sheet item under an asset, which should be at one point or the other. We need to move it there. But if you had money to spend in terms of talent, would you be recruiting more people in your organization, or would you keep the existing people and train them more? Where would your mind go to? Jared, Rafida, Farouk?
So, forgive me, I lost my voice on Friday. I've been not speaking for 3 days to make sure I'll be okay. Look, I would invest into my existing people. And although I'm coming from the recruitment HR lens, I have seen how painful and costly it is to experience turnover. And I think everyone in this room has experienced it as a leader or even as the individual leaving a business. And turnover happens for a range of reasons. Sometimes it's the right decision, but it is costly. It can be disruptive to culture. Now, it really depends on the business you're in, the industry, and the function, right? From a sales HR point of view, we can train a lot of the skills quite easily. It's not as technical. It's more focused on people, emotion, connection, soft skills, which I'll talk a lot about later. But I would personally invest into my existing staff, upskill, build loyalty, as I think it'll be a better long-term play in the business that I'm in.
Rafida? That's for video recording, so this one is needed still. I think you're on.
Right. That question, unfortunately, because of the higher expectation of the shareholders, is basically delivering more with less. So the table stays, you need to reduce your costs because the expectation is for us to be a fitter operations going forward, but yet better decision making and be able to scale. So within that, constrained resources that you have, you need to make that tough choices. You need to be able to build people that are relevant for the future, fit for the future. At the same time, these savings, you need to make sure that you invest resources either in technology or even spend really good money in really investing people. So we talk about no more about hire to retire, but be able to increase employability rather than employment.
Do you still, before I go to Farouk, do you still see employees, hiring managers still prefer to recruit more people because it's a sign of comfort that you have more people will solve the problem? Or do you think the mindset is changing?
At least in the company that I work, it's not about the number of FTEs anymore.
Got you.
I'm afraid. And the only thing that we struggle here is to be able to retain the right people with the right skill. So we've got this build, buy, bridge. So how much of the time that you would be able to spend on build, or do you rather to buy?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, what you've seen here is we're going to face the war of talent because whatever that we want is also whatever other companies want. So how can we be ahead of the game in terms of be able to build and buy the right talent that is fit for the future?
Farouk, you're literally in the talent space with different kind of environment, running a football club. You've been in Aeon, you've been in Nestle, you've seen it all globally as well as what you do differently. How do you see it?
Thanks. First of all, thank you very much, Venkat and CIMA, for inviting us today. I think for us, for me, looking at my experience in variety of industry, at this moment is actually investing in the current team. I think that's more important because we need to prepare our current team for the future. That's what you mentioned here as a core skills, right? But also as being the devil's advocate here, I mean, we also need to be fair to the current generation as well. If you do not have an opportunity to bring the current generation to the workforce, then it could also be an issue, especially where I'm saying is that if I have experience in international companies, and it is tough for current generation to enter into a big companies in Malaysia. But being in SMEs, Do we really want to see the future generation of Zs and Y only in SMEs of Malaysia? I think we also need to be a bit more open to bring them in. But at the end of the day, it's about putting the right people on the right role. I think that's more important for me. But being on the current team, I will put my money into investing the current team into the future, especially in education and to prepare them for the future.
Yeah. Jared, I'm going to come to you because there's an important thing in terms of rewarding, and I'll also come to your point, Farooq. Something that you said is resonating in some parts of the world. I mean, when we go to India, what we're hearing is that they're struggling to recruit people at the starting levels. Because if you look at the finance function, it's a sharp diamond drop, right? So the skills are mostly AI and other things take over in terms of the technical side of things. But it's also the whole process that we have to look below. But we have a question around that I'll come back to. So Jared, what are we rewarding? I mean, are we looking at rewarding judgment? I mean, there's an interesting article on Wall Street Journal yesterday about critical thinking. They're actually asking you not to critically think too much. They're saying, oh yes, they're saying have curiosity, but don't go into too much of critical thinking because your critical thinking is not someone else's critical thinking. And that comes back to a different part, but we'll take that. So when you look at what you do and how you bring talent across in Malaysia and other parts of the world, are you rewarding for judgment and strategic communication, or are companies still looking at specific skills and technical skills in recruitment? Jared?
So I think it really depends the level that you're observing, right? I do think at the junior to mid-level, although I agree with your point there, I mean, automation is becoming mainstream now, and we're seeing less of these transactional tasks being performed by people. But execution is really important at that level, and it may not be the right time for critical thinking. But that also ties into the culture of the business you're in. If you're sharing ideas at all levels, there's benefit to that. But I think generally execution is still important earlier points of your career. But as you move into mid-level management and hopefully into senior level management, if that's your plan, critical thinking, judgment, and the human element and the soft skills become incredibly important. And we do find a lot of people may stay at head of department level or senior manager level and very good at execution, but the challenge of making that next step, outside of the fact there are less roles and it can be more competitive, is that ability to communicate really well, to be politically diplomatic, to play the game and build the connections, and they're soft skills that you need to develop. You develop them through experience, you develop them by going to networking events and meeting people and shaking hands and all those things. But the soft skills are incredibly important, and it does worry me as this next group come through, and it's probably more of a social issue too around how we use technology, that we're losing some of the human element. You know, in a recruitment sense, we moved away from face-to-face meetings pre-COVID, that was essential, that's how you met people, to doing everything virtually. It actually works quite well. I wouldn't want to go all the other way back because you can be more efficient. But we're seeing even some of those newer consultants coming through that may not have as strong people skills if they would have when I was coming through. Because I was forced to go out and meet people and sit eye to eye and have a conversation, and there's skill in that. It's something you have to develop. So to answer the question, I think it depends on the level. I think soft skills are paramount. People should invest in developing soft skills. And that will be the difference, I believe, between making that next move, especially if you're kind of mid-level and wanting to do something more senior.
Yeah, I'll use two stories of my daughter. She plays Roblox. If you have kids, you'll know Roblox. She can talk to people in Roblox who are in different parts and play together, but you put her in front of strangers who are similar age, she'll not talk to them for a while. She'll be it'll take some time to warm up, and then they figure out that they know Roblox, and then they get together. The other thing, Rafida, before I come to a question, one thing annoying is that my daughter tells me how I should be using Instagram. When I'm posting stories, she's like, it's so boring. She's 13, she's not supposed to use Instagram after this year because there's a 16-year-old ban, which I'm going to communicate to her. So she'll take my post, she will say, you have to do this, put this music this way, and I'm like, can you become my social media manager? Because these are digital natives in a way that they understand technology further. So Rafida, you are surrounded by incredibly young talent. I mean, beyond the working together, have you seen different methods you at Shell are using to increase the citizen digital talent at Shell?
Yeah. So of course, aspiration is to move to 50% of our finance talent to be digitally savvy. And I quite like what you said just now around, you're boring and messages. I mean, I was told by Mike, because I'm leading 750 finance talent in Cyberjaya, and I'm having 650 across the globe, and 250 are data scientists in finance. And can you imagine that, Rafida, your key messages, people don't read the long key messages. Please turn it to video, TikToks, and even, and this is an interesting part. So when we talk about learning, Venkat, it's no longer a learning, a classroom training, 2-3 hours. They like a quick, if you look at LinkedIn Learning, 3 hours videos. And one of the things that we tested and was successful is around how do we inculcate the digital savvy through gamification.
Yep.
Gamification.
Yep.
It's actually giving you the right sandbox environment, and we encourage people to either use Copilot Studio, a few other tools that we allow, so that they can actually innovate. And I think one of the things that people also are not comfortably, because they, especially at the mid-level, the millennials, the Gen Y, is around, hey, actually, I can do things differently now. And I don't have the right safe environment for me to test it. And that's probably where we thought that the gamification amongst the millennials, we give them few $100, just to excite. Because especially if they can do that, the implication here is to how they can make that, the manual task turn to, very much, automatically. And we just give, 360 WI, right? So that means you don't need to, if one person comes in as a new person in a job, it's no longer looking at work instructions. Gone with that days. It's all through using technology, and people can just, turn around and all that. So you don't actually rely on people.
Yeah.
So how much can we really excite? And that is where we are currently testing, and gamification is new one that we thought that excites people.
Do you have reverse mentoring?
We do we do have that, which means that in a group, it actually consists of, the data scientists. That's the reason why we have moved in terms of recruiting data scientists in our finance organization, because we believe that we need to have that flexibility of and diversity of thinking. And that actually helps, because for me, well, I don't know how to code, and I think that's not the expectation for me to know how to code. But then I need to be able they need me to ask the right questions.
Yep.
What would be the variables that I need to do in order for me to do this analytics, for instance? What kind of risk am I looking at? So those are the things that, just to give one more example, because we are now exploring agentic AI. And then we say that with agentic AI, of course, with financial controls, you need to have the human in the loop. Hey, what exactly this human in the loop is going to do? It's going to be different. And that exactly the emerging skills that we don't see that people have that skills right now. You need to equip yourself with it. Do you understand the data flow? Do you understand what exactly the data that is being capturing if you're going to inject the machine learning and NLP and all that? We are still learning on that piece. Unfortunately, we don't have high attrition. So it's very difficult to buy as well. Anyway, long.
No, it's an interesting part, because one of the things that was showed about the digital side of things is when the NVIDIA CEO was asked about how to use Gen AI, he says, I have 2 Gen AIs. I ask the first Gen AI what I need to do. Then I ask the first Gen AI, give me a prompt. I need a second opinion. I take that prompt and put it to the second Gen AI. I says, this is what it developed. What do you think? And all he does is go back and forth. And he says, it's like my little consultant. So in a way that if you don't understand what skills that you can use for emerging and keep your core, your curiosity goes off. Farooq, I got a question, and Sarita knows this gentleman whose name I shall not reveal. He's a CEO now. He came into offices 10 years ago, 11 years ago, frustrated. He was recruited as a CFO, and he came from a master's program, and not the MBA program, and he was recruited to turn around the company because of his business skills. He came frustratingly, sat in front of us and said, do you have any program where I can become a CIMA member? I said, why? He said, I sit in a room filled with all accounting people, and because they know I'm not an accountant, they love to use IFRS this, IFRS that. You cannot do this, you cannot do that. And I look like a bubbling idiot at that point. I need a qualification that when I get through, I go to them and throw it to them and say, now talk to me. Interesting, because most often, finance people are accused of being transactional. I mean, there was a wonderful program, a photo that somebody said when finance people produce reports and they showed, it's like switchboard with multiple plugs in and out, and they understand it. Sorry, I'm an accountant. We understand it, but the rest of them don't. Storytelling, relational. You run a football club. My God, did you wake up one day and say, I'm going to run football club? You have the state to work with. You have a Mantri Basar to work with. You have board of governors. You have different stakeholders. You have worked in different industries as well. Relational, storytelling, or transactional? What's your view?
Yeah, interesting one. Thank you. Yeah, it's not an easy industry, I would say. Being a finance person for 25 years, to leave our comfort zone is something that we ourselves have to decide. You have to ask yourself whether you want to stay in the finance route or you want to go out, right? So I took that steps a few years back after spending 20 years in Nestle in finance. Basically, I've done everything in Nestle in terms of finance, from the factory, for the sales, business unit, everything, even CFO in Switzerland for 5 years for the ice cream business, for 3 billion business. After 25 years, I had enough of numbers, to be honest with you. Then the offer came to move into Aeon. It was COVID. To sell chickens and fish and breads during COVID is also another challenge, right? 5 years as a CEO of Aeon, met many people, suppliers, 2,500 employees, 22 outlets, and now I'm running a football club with Terengganu State. Also a challenging part. Now, the key part of it is basically, number one is us, ourselves. You have to ask this whether you are willing to leave that finance stage. Now, one good part of it is that transaction to transformative or anything is that the core is still finance. That's the beauty of it, right? Any roles that I went to, we can't run away from finance. Once you have that skill, because numbers will always be there, right? Even now, calculating salaries of a football player is easy for me while comparing to my team, When talking about sponsorship with another company, it's easy for me because we know the numbers. We can calculate the numbers quite easily compared to the others, right? So the core is still finance. And like it or not, we have that advantage as a finance person. So keep it with you. That I would say the most part. But moving into a non-financial role, going forward, we are moving into a non-transactional environment. Right? We have to accept that. One particular skill, when you talk about it, it's very important that the core skills that you put behind in that quadrant, right? I would say execution and also communication is key. Because when we deal with non-financial people, it's like you said, if you talk about only IFRS, it's difficult. We lose that particular person. So we have to change our language into a non-financial to make the other party understand what we're talking about, especially when it comes to business transaction and we talk about commercial, right? So just to share with you again, it's on us whether we want to move out of finance or not. But the beauty part of it, we will never run away from finance because it is the core of any particular business, or it is also a core for any particular roles in any organization.
Yeah. Just a follow-up question from that. I mean, part of the report talks about the war for talent and how retaining talents are hard. You went from Nestle, a supplier, to directly selling it to a consumer, to running a football club. In a way, what's your advice to this group of people? And sometimes it happens to me that I'm so comfortable in the industry that I am and I don't shift, not only industry, but roles. What's your biggest takeaway? What's the thing that moved the needle for you to say, I'm going to get uncomfortable with this?
It's basically it's moving into unknown territory, moving out of our comfort zone. I think one part of skills is adaptability and flexibility. I think it's needed inside us, right? Once you have that, in any issues or crises that we face, I'm sure we can get through it, right? So I think that's one skill that is very important.
And that's because of the transferable skill set you had from the things that you work with as well.
Correct.
Jared, I mean, before President Trump came in, ESG, sustainability was key topic mind for us, right? Now it's like Greenland, and I don't know what topics go from time to time. That's the uncertainty that we have to deal with. Jared, ESG and the areas on sustainability, they are not anymore need to have, they are must have. And when we look at talent coming from, and part of the report talks about it in terms of how talent have to understand literacy around these areas, because one is the reporting side, disclosure. The second part is telling the story of what you do to stakeholders in the others, because investors are now willing to invest in companies, it depends where they're coming from, where ESG metrics are clear. How do you see that being affected in Malaysia and your regional role in terms of acquiring that talent? And what do you think needs to be done, Jared?
So I think ESG and sustainability is an interesting market and function to speak to because it's relatively immature when you compare it to some of our functions like finance. And because of that, even a job description from business to business is very different. And for companies, they're on a different part of the path. Maybe they're realizing, oh, we're behind the eight ball here and we've got to report on these disclosures. Let's get people in and get that done. Whereas some other businesses, maybe MNCs, are more mature in that approach where they've invested already 5-10 years ago. They've got the skill set internally, and now they can really focus on the value add. How do we encourage investors to invest more because we are committed to this path and we're generally doing it right? So businesses are on a different scale. When it comes to the skill set, we saw a massive increase in demand for ESG talent between straight out of MCO up until probably late 2024. And businesses of all industries, particularly highly regulated businesses, banks, for example, FS broadly, were investing and had the largest teams. And largely because they generally have more to report on, it's more technical. And then we saw roles like head of department, head of sustainability, sustainability lead get hired. And candidates from all walks of life are putting their hands up because it's a great story. It's a good place to be because it's the future, right? So we had finance professionals trying to move laterally. We had those coming from governance, risk, audit lines. We had strategy, and we had those coming from, let's say, more technical background, engineers, environmental science. And it was exciting, all these people coming in to want to get involved, but we're bringing all different skill sets with them. So in some way, it's very hard to then confirm, okay, what is that role worth, and how do we fit this into the organisational structure? To where we are now, in the last 18 months, unfortunately, it's been really slow, and I've been trying to figure out what is the reason for this, right? I think an element of it is that businesses have invested, and they did a lot of that investment into those capabilities in that two-year window. But also because maybe some are losing focus, right? And looking at everything that's happening in the world, the geopolitical environment, businesses are still cost-cutting, they're looking at efficiencies and maybe not prioritising sustainability and ESG as much as I believe that they should. Yep. So I think in terms of the skill sets that are in demand, anyone that's got a strong capability when it comes to reporting, of course, with S1, S2 being the common theme now. Anyone experienced with Scope 3 around supply chains, it's a really hard skill set to find. Most people haven't got it, so they're developing it in-house and using consultants, which are generally quite expensive, to build that talent. And look, I think at a senior level, it's that board level ESG experience where you can look at ESG risks, you can look at ESG from the investor point of view. If you're expanding into new markets, you can advise on what to consider. I think that experience is quite valuable. We don't see as many CFOs, senior executives who have got a track record of 2-3 years in dealing with those issues. So I think this is why it's hard to answer the question. It's really everywhere and it keeps changing, but I think having some exposure to ESG and sustainability as a finance professional is going to be important. It's likely going to become part of your role in the future, if it's not now.
Yeah, Scope 3, that's hard, man. It's measuring and reporting what your suppliers do, not what you do. That's hard. I usually walk around during panel discussions, but this chair is too comfortable. I'll try to get up first thing. Rafida, I mean, there was a former CEO, Barry, used to say that if you take the finance function, hot air balloon? You all have seen a hot air balloon. Yes, thank God. I'll never get into one of those. My risk measurement of those are no goes, but my wife and daughter always want to jump into one. So the hot air balloon is like that, right? Now, if you describe the finance function, you turn the hot air balloon the other way, that's what the finance function looks now. Narrow bottom, big fat layer, narrow top. What they say is that when you recruit people, they need to be trained very fast to get into that big layer, fat middle layer. That means that a lot of the skills that they knew have to let go. What are those skills, Rafida, that you see that's going to disappear very, very fast at that bottom layer from where you are?
So I remember when I joined Shell as a graduate many, many years ago, we need to do closing, reconciliation, balancing the accounts, and all that. And that exactly, if you look at how those, if I just take one activity called manage close, all those manual tasks around getting manual reconciliation, all those, they're all gone now. One here is, of course, with a technology like S4, for instance, that gives you that automated closing, yeah? And that is, in a way, moving from manual tasks to probably the first, early stage of automation would be you put in some of the, if some of the systems can't provide you, they give you the RPAs. And then you've got AI assisted. And then you've got now agentic AI. Can you imagine that if I have a graduate comes in, first you need to understand the business very well, because otherwise you're not able to then understand the risk around some of those data. And in the past, I used to be able to know the back of envelope calculations, so-called, but it's all automated. And I think then the expectation, even for AI, for instance, to generate anomaly detection. But then again, when you come in, how do you know? Because it actually learns through all the data, right? The anomaly detection needs to be adjusted based on your rule-based, or even using NLP or machine learning. You need to feed the right data to be able for the outcome to be reliable, right? So honestly, we are actually reducing the number of graduates right now because we don't have many positions for that. But that's not the right thing to do, right? So we need to make sure that, I think I saw that in the report. How can we make sure the universities train in a way that people are comfortable, of course having that core skills still relevant, but be able to quickly and fast enough to adjust to the work environment. And that's a struggle I see for the graduates. Yeah. So I think that's where we are moving away. In fact, we have a certain job groups. We said that all of the lower job groups are going to be disappear because we are moving towards autonomous finance, if you understand autonomous finance means. So that's probably where we don't see that anymore.
Will disappear, or is it disappearing and it'll go faster?
It is disappearing and it will much faster than we thought.
That's interesting.
It will disappear.
And coming back to that...
It is disappearing. Some of them we don't even need it now. Yeah?
And that's, Sheikh Farouk, I'm going to come to a very difficult question to you, and I'll provide some context on that. I'm so sorry. One of the things that my daughter came yesterday. I'm using my daughter to anchor a lot of stories because I have to, because that's interesting. She came yesterday and she said she got, for one of the subjects, she got out of 35, 24. And she looked at me just before starting a call. I said, okay, you happy with the result? She said, I don't know, are you happy with the result? I said, I don't know, I'm cool with the result if you're cool with the result. If I went up to my father and I got 96 for maths, I can tell you my father will look at me and say, what happened to the balance 4? Now, kids are studying in schools for careers that don't exist. People are sent to universities for careers that don't exist. One of my daughter friend and her father, we are close friends. We talk about it. School is now like a social club. Really, it is. We just say, go have fun and come back. I mean, sorry. I mean, some of the things they're learning, I can tell you, they can put it onto AI and get it within 5 to 10 minutes. So, Sheikh Farouk, I mean, tough. Universities, globally, right, not just here, if you look at 2030 and it's 2026, they're going to be entering universities now and they're going to be coming off in 4 years, are we setting them up for failures, and how should individuals and institutions support universities to help bridge that gap faster? Because otherwise, it's just, to Rafida's point, you're going to get graduates who are coming with skills that don't exist now, and that's going to be, to your point about MNC should be recruiting them more, but they can't because of these things. Loaded question, and I apologize for that in advance. Don't ask me what the question is.
There's no one from Ministry of Education here, right?
The recordings will be kept internally and not shared externally.
You know, I'm working for Ministry of Youth and Sports,
Yeah.
right? So I'm one of the other jobs. I'm actually working for Ministry of Youth and Sports under YB Hana, and now it's YB Taufik Johari, right? So I'm meeting them the next 2 days. Yeah, it is tough. I'm not saying that our education is wrong or things has not been changed for the last few years, right? But I think to the extent of what is happening to our education system, we're not saying it's wrong, but it's saying that we are putting our kids into disadvantages for them, right? I have 3 kids of my own, right? 3 of my kids, and 2 is studying here in the university, and 1 is in Europe, in Netherlands, because he's playing football. And I told him not to play football here, right? So ironically, right? So he's there playing football and studying. Look, if we put them into this stage now, things will get less relevant. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's less relevant skills for the kids for the future, right? I still remember, like Fida, 25 years back when I joined Nestle, I joined as a management trainee, right? And we work our ass off until 2 o'clock in the morning, right? Until 2 o'clock in the morning.
That's a norm.
That's normal. That's normal at that time, you know. Coming back at home 2 o'clock during closing, during budgeting is normal. And my parents at that time still said, go out and work harder, right? Seriously, right? And now, guess what? If our kids come back from home, they are not back at 6, what do you say to them? Something wrong with your boss. True, right? That's the reality of the changes, right? So in my view is that currently, if we only stick to theory, they will be less relevant and disadvantageous for them. That's my view. So we need to put them more into more practical, right? I saw there's some, even my son now is in Sunway University at the last year of marketing. He has to do internship on his last years of 6 months. I think that's good. That's good, because part of your 3 years, you have to do 6 months internship. Okay, although they are only being paid 500 or 800, that's not the point. The point is actually they have to wake up every day in the morning and understand what does 9 to 5 works. They have to understand that part, right? Because otherwise, the new generation will not want to work 9 to 5 anymore. They see it as being a social media, as a YouTuber. That is a career. It's not to be CIMA member, right? That's the reality.
No, it is, yeah.
That's the reality of our current kids. Right? I have 3 on my own, and I can understand that part. So not to say wrong to our Ministry of Education, but that's the reality of our education now. Being Malaysia or being abroad, so I studied in 5 universities across all continents. You know, but I said we have to put the practical part into the education system. Otherwise, it's very difficult for us to be ready for the next generation.
And it's a tough, because if I ask my daughter, what do you want to do in the future? Her first statement is help people. And I'm like, great for you, I'm not sending you to university. I'll help that money to my retirement fund and not, I mean, that's a clear, because they don't have a vision of what employment looks like. Yeah. And when my daughter listens to some of my course that I'm in, she comes and says, I don't want to do what you're doing. She's very clear. And Jared, when you look at this, right, I'm sorry, I'm going to put a little bit of a different question to you, and I'm going to come to you, Rafida. The entirety of generational shift is massive. It's not normal, it's massive. When Michael Page, I mean, you recruit at different levels, from high-end CEOs, CFOs, to mid-level managers and seniors. But we are working with 5 different generations now. To Sheikh Farooq's point, the older generation still want to come to office. They like to see you in office. They like to see your face, because they want to make sure you're accountable for the roles undertaken. Nothing wrong, because that's the discipline that they work with. We can't judge them. I mean, I was the same thing as well. My father was like, are you home early? So something wrong with you. And when I started working from home, my father thought I had no job. It's hard. How do you see the whole shifts of demographics, the ways of working, and things changing in the future from Michael Page's point of view, Darren?
So this is, it's very topical. I mean, we had a conversation this
Earlier,
morning
yep.
about flexibility, work-life balance, obviously very progressive here, whereas there are many examples in Malaysia and globally where tech firms have pulled everyone back into the office and said, non-negotiable, you're coming back here and we want to drive productivity. Whether that works or not, we'll have to see. But I think what's really clear and probably more important now is this next group that are currently in the workforce, though, and this is those that are probably in their early 20s, early mid-20s, out of university, where during MCO they experienced working from home and flexibility. And we all know MCO really drove that working from home idea, and it's actually worked really well in some areas. It's drove more efficiency, productivity. And then other areas you have to manage it really closely, you know, and it's not about managing the majority, it's the minority that it's not working for, you work with those people.
Yep.
And I'm a big believer of that. But again, every business is doing it differently. But it's that group of people who are probably some of the, you know, your kids here, they're in the workforce now saying, I worked from home, I loved the flexibility, I don't want to come into the office, I don't see myself in the office the next 30 years. And it's a really tricky conversation because they are speaking from their experience, from what they were given and how they adapted, and now you're telling them to do something that's not that. So I think we're going to go through these teething issues, and this represents the expectation gap you referred to, where employers are struggling to find talent, even at the more junior levels, but they're also struggling to retain talent as the businesses change, their needs change and evolve. So you're just dealing with a demographic where you probably do have to be a bit more sensitive in the approach. You do have to listen more, you have to ask more questions, and you have to communicate. And I think this is going to test leaders who are now leading teams, irrespective of the size, where you've got younger people in your teams. Because the way you might lead someone who could be in their mid to late 30s or early 40s is going to be very different to leading someone in their mid 20s.
Yep.
So I think the action point in that is it has to be the soft skills. It's more listening, asking questions. You're probably grinding your teeth thinking, we've been talking about this for 10 minutes, flexibility. But I think showing interest and curiosity, you don't always have to have the answer, will go a long way, especially in good leadership, building loyalty, all of those things.
Rafida, for you, I mean, you lead a group of 750 people. I'm going to come and ask any questions you all want to ask the panelists. So if I look at you, I'm looking for you to ask a question. You can't hide away. You lead 750 people, different generations. How are you managing it? How is Shell managing that culture?
And this is one of the things why I'm still working. I haven't gone out yet from my core finance skill, because I see value in really leveraging the diverse thinking. You know, the new generation, what I love about them here is they're much more risk taker. If I have these millennials and Gen Y, you know, everything they want to get it perfect. You know, they take months to understand risk opportunities. They don't take risk. And if you combine that thinking, you take some calculated risk, you move faster, and that really creates that innovation. And in the world that we're working right now, I mean, in the past, if you look at system implementation, it's very much around project basis. So it's a kind of waterfall that this is how it is, right? But now we are all moving to a products. If you look at what finance people are doing like right now, some of them are model builders. They're model for all the reportings and all that, then into a product. So instead of you're a reporting analyst, we call it you're a product owner. And imagine this technology is not going to stay for 2-3 years. After 6 months, you got, last time we were Copilot, now we've got Copilot Studio.
Yep.
You know, even if you looked at SAP, for instance, currently they don't have analytics in future. They might have Signavio attached to it, and so you don't get hung up on the technology. What is important here is the ability to really understand how you make money. Therefore, before you even jump into technology, you need to then understand the whole end-to-end process. Yeah. And that's where the old, I mean, I wouldn't say the old, the experienced people will probably provide that kind of background. And then I like, you know, the new generation, because they don't get hung up with the way how things are operated. Yeah. I said, hey, can we redesign the whole process? Yep. Can we reimagine how things are going to to be done. So instead of just automate first, you eliminate some of the things. So it's like the SR, right? Eliminate, simplify, standardize, and then you automate. So the one of the flaw that I see, sometimes people jump into automation just because they want to be in the bandwagon.
Yeah. But they don't understand the whys.
They don't understand the why. Sometimes you ask the 5 times of why, and by the 4th time, actually you don't need it.
Yep.
Therefore, you eliminate. So that I love to work with this new gen. But what you need here is to provide them with the safe space so that they can make mistakes, and then they learn from there.
Yep.
And in technology and innovation world, you need to make mistakes for you to learn.
Interesting. Can you see that one of the points from the report, culture, psychological safety to challenge assumptions. We as an organization need to provide that, because to what you said, this gentleman, the same gentleman Noel used to say, if for an older generation, if risk was a naked lady standing in front of them and dancing, they'll not see it. Inversely, for the younger generation, for the older generation, if opportunity was a naked lady and dancing, they will not see it. For the younger generation, risk, they don't see it. So it's comparing and bringing both of them together. That's because what you said is psychological safety, because the last thing is the younger generation, they don't like to be judged. Yeah. And once they're judged, they shut off.
Correct. Okay. You provide a clear intent,
yep,
which is very important. Clear intent, the how is to give that flexibility for them to innovate and
yep,
creatively,
yep,
give the outcome. Yeah.
Questions to the audience, the panelists. Anybody wants to ask a question? Sarita here will give you free merchandise later. Anyone? Yes, sir.
Hi, good morning. My name is Brian. Among many roles, I'm part of the MIA's Digital Implementation Technology Committee. So one of the observations that we notice is that there's now a lack of, I guess, interest in accounting. Maybe because they view accounting as, being boring, dull, and it's not as exciting, right, as what you mentioned just now about social media and all that. So if you were to, say, interview someone, or you were to select someone, would you go for someone with an accounting background or a finance background, or both? Maybe one of your answers would be, okay, why don't you go for both? But I'm of the opinion that, for the new generation, and especially for the next 5, 10 years, it is very important for people to be in the market as soon as possible, as opposed to studying for the next 5, 10 years, which we have been, very used to. I mean, the older generation, we do our masters, we do our MBA. But in our current environment right now, it is important to be as fast as possible to the market. Would you agree with that?
Whoever wants to take that question, you can do rock, paper, scissors, or... Well, I'll take it, Brand, something, I'll after maybe one of you. At a conference, there's this CEO who sat next when a typical question was asked, the same thing, pipeline issue. It was described as a pipeline issue first. He said, he quietly listened and he said, dinner time conversation. Then everybody asked, what do you mean dinner time conversation? I said, all of you are accountants in the room, right? Yes. Describe me your dinner time conversation. Okay, that means husband and wife with the kids. You come after work, not on a Saturday, but you come after work, describe the dinner time conversation. So come after work, they all sit there, the husband will go, the wife will go, says, how was your day, honey? It's horrible. Why? Month-end closing is starting. Oh, so you're going to be coming at 2 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, how's your work? Oh man, they're asking me to generate reports. There's a new standard coming up. I don't know what to do. We have to work with them. Who's sitting and listening to this conversation? Your kids. They're sitting and listening and going, I don't want to be there. So the pipeline issue starts at home. Because if you ask most of the accountants, unless the kids have been forced, sorry, that's the reality, how many of your kids are in finance profession, you'll find not many. Because they need to be inspired. This is the most exciting profession that ever existed, if you ask me. This is the only profession that is of trust. And the things that we can do and provide information for impact, influence, tell stories about the organization. Another gentleman described a lunchtime conversation at office. You know how he described it? All finance people sit in office, having lunch, and every single person walking, they judge them. Ah, salespeople, bullshit. They know the data. Finance knows the data. They're the heart of everything. It is what you use it for that matters. Anyone want to take a stab?
So maybe to answer your, thank you for the question. This is not an easy one. Maybe to answer that question is, let me ask to the group first. How many of us in this group are actually accountants? Put up your hands. About 40%. How many of us in this group are actually finance people? 3. Okay. Any of us are both? Good. Right. So, you see, it's a bit of confusion, right? Not many people understand actually truly what is accountant, what is finance. True or not?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Not many understand. I asked this question to myself 25 years ago when I did my first degree, right? I might look myself as accountant or finance. I decided to go for finance because finance is basically looking forward future. We are analyzing value creation, study business analysis, right? But accountants are basically looking at the past, auditing, book closing, which is now no longer there, right? So to answer your question is basically, it depends on our organization and who that person goes for the interview. Because I believe still every organization need both, right? We still need accountants to close off the books and really do the audit checking. We still need that. We also need finance people for future, for value creation of the business. So it depends on the business organization. It depends on the role that you're looking for, right? So if you are moving into more FMCG industry, we require more of a future finance person. Because we're looking more for innovation and renovation products. So we require more finance. But we still need some accountants to do the check and balance, okay? But my only advice to those candidates, if you're an accountant, you need to top up with commercial experience. Either you do certificate, either you do internship, either you need to have that sense. Because when you go for an interview and to say that I'm an accountant, the bosses of the current one will say that, okay, you are more towards the past, not future. So you need to show something. Either you have experience, I mean, it doesn't matter if you work part-times or in a shop or retail, doesn't matter. But it shows that you're looking forward as well. So my answer to you is you need to have both.
And transition from accounting to finance is not difficult.
It's not difficult.
It's not difficult.
Yeah.
But you just have to have that curiosity and understanding.
Correct.
Rafida, you want to take a stab at that?
Maybe just to add to that, because I do, employ graduates, in external hire as well. So it's probably because for us having that accounting background is a given. So it's the minimum requirement. So it's not a matter or, so that is a given because you've got lots of talent that you can attract, right? So because you still need somebody to sign the accounts, you need to make sure that the accounts are still reliable for investors to look at. So for me, that's a given. What actually your key differentiators, I call it, and for you to be able then to be a successful finance person, then you move away from accounting is a given. That is what exactly, if you look at the cake, the understanding the accounting and all that is a given. Getting a professional qualification is a given. What exactly that differentiate you from others to be a good, successful finance person? Of course, commercial acumen is one of them. But in a world where things are very much like changing and all that, agility, grit, there are some of, and resilience. There are 3 things. And probably another one is a lifelong learning. I think it's in the report as well, ability to learn, continuously learn. It's not about you know it all, but you learn it all. So that kind of different mindset and behavior that differentiate you from the other person. So when we look at interview questions, it's not just about how you, what's a debit, credit, and thing. Yeah? I mean, we actually test you on your grit, on your resilience, on your agility, and your ability to listen and learn. So it's not about even no matter how high your position is, you're not able to know everything, but you need to learn it all together.
You want to add on, Jared?
Just a final angle on that, and I agree with everything that was shared. You know, I last year spent some time with some of the high schools in Malaysia presenting to the Year 12 cohort as they're exiting to plan work experience, the skills they want to develop, different career paths. And because I've recruited accounting and finance for the last 12 years, I spoke to accounting and finance and the different career paths you can go down. You know, whether you move into FP&A, something more commercial, you go into something investment, corporate finance focused, or maybe more traditional finance where you're closing the books, you're reporting. Traditionally, at the end of the session, no one had any questions. It was a bit awkward. I was really pushing for some questions, but no one had any. Maybe that's just year 12s. But straight after, as the session settled, I had 10 odd people come up to me and really query me around the different career paths in accounting and finance, which shocked me. And I was really happy to have those conversations. So maybe it's also just an education piece to the group pre-university. What is accounting and finance, and what are the career paths now in this day and age and for the next 10, as far as we can see? And it's perhaps not what it's perceived to be, or the children's parents who may not be accounting and finance professionals, their perception of what the career is. Because I agree, it's an exciting career. To have financial acumen and you go into business or different avenues will serve you incredibly well. So maybe to add on a different thought, it's are we educating students at the right level before they make the decision what career path they want to go down?
Thanks, Jared.
And just joking aside, I got 4 children. My first one is an engineer. He took engineer because he said that I always heard mom always work late. I don't want to be an accountant. My second one is actually a finance person because she said, oh, what mom is doing is very interesting. My third one is now also started working already, sustainability. She's in sustainability department in Kazana. And my fourth one, you know what she said? Mommy, I think I want to be a psychologist. Why? I think that's the only one probably AI can't replace. And what do you want to be? I want to be a clinical criminal psychologist. And she's only 16.
Oh, boy.
Can you imagine the kind of how your kids are influenced by the surrounding? And I think that's, well, I never thought that the job called clinical psychologist when I was 15, 16. But it's interesting how people actually are, keeping abreast with what they see.
Maybe
just joking aside.
Maybe the last one had seen the career decisions of your first 3 and decided, nope, I'm going the other way around. Brian, you got 3 of them answering your questions. Anyone else for the audience? Yes, sir.
Can I ask 2 questions?
All yours. Point them if you know who you want to ask the question. It might.
Yeah. Morning. I actually have 2 questions. One is more of curiosity. Number 2 is more of see whether there's a trend going down that route. The first one will be more towards to this gentleman. Is that you shared that you are a finance person, accountant. How do you migrate into a different, career all the way? And how do you know that you are ready to take on that? It is still a huge move from where you're saying that from Nestle and now you're managing football. Okay, so that's curiosity question. Question number 2, more towards Jared and Rashida, is that I see whether is there a trend going on, because I actually experienced this in my team. I had an intern who is actually a marketeer, right? So he's coming out from UiTM. And he wants to work in finance, accounting. Now, he says to me, I say, why do you think as a marketeer makes you suitable to work in accounting? And this is a very junior level intern. He told me is that it's not what you sell, it's how you sell. And when he after internship is very successful, so he moved into full-time. And when we normally do is static report, your agings and stuff like that. But he totally took that away. He said that how you do is static report is not involving people. So it convert everything to Power BI. And when I asked him how you do your Power BI, he says that it's just 3-4 hours investment over the weekend, watch YouTube, and voila. This is real true story. As me, looking at him, then I ask myself this question. Does it mean by default, if I were to hire accounts receivables, accounts payable, does it mean I have to go the normal route? Are you an accountant? Are you doing your degree and stuff like that? But now it doesn't seem to be. The guy with a marketing background has that creativity, and he likes technology, so he likes AI. So now he's embarking the conversation of robotics. And everything he studied is through YouTube. Mm-hmm. So then my question was, do you see that as a trend, whereby when I hire accounting team to the accounting ecosystem, does it mean that I have to go to the accounting degree? Or now it looks like it's not what you sell, how you sell.
Rock, paper, scissors, easy way to settle it.
I go for the soft skills first. Yeah, I think thank you for the question. Yeah, out of curiosity, I think it goes back to what I said is to us, personally, right? I mean, when do I realize that I wanted to jump ship? That time was basically, maybe, I have to give the credit to Nestle as well. Nestle trains the employees really well into various roles. So out of my 20 years in Nestle, basically I move roles every 2 to 3 years, right? Even being in factory, few factories, branches, audit, business unit, everything for that 20 years. Abroad 3 times, Philippines when we created the shared service center, Singapore 5 years when we created the treasury center. And this was in 2005, 20 years ago, imagine. We were already there, right? Even in HQ in Switzerland for 5 years. That's good about Nestle. So I have to give credit to them. So once they train you for 20 years, basically it gives me an urge to say that, look, why am I supposed to be stuck in finance, right? Because I know that my path in finance in Nestle will only be as a CFO, as a highest, right? True? Is that all? It's on us. It's all right. I don't see myself only as a CFO. I see myself one day I want to be the CEO of Nestle, for example. So what's my lacking skill at that particular time? Obviously, we are lack of, as a finance person or accountant, we are lack of sales. We are lack of marketing skills. We are lack of communication skills. So it's on us to really top up that skills, right? So one of it is actually what you said. It's a continuous learning. That's one of the skills that I put in. Every 3 to 5 years, I invested in myself to learn. I took CIMA only in 2019 in Poland. I took my CIMA in Poland, in Europe, because I was based in Swiss, right? So every few years, we have to push ourselves to invest. I use my bonus money to pay for investment. So do that. Do that for you to top up the skills. Then maybe you will open up to a new venture, right? Or a new ship, example. But at the end of the day, as I mentioned, even though I was a CEO now for 3 organizations, Aeons, United Nations for Malaysian Employees Federation, and now Terengganu football team. At the end of the day, the core is still finance and accountant. I still have my accountant license for me to sign the books, but the core is still finance. Because whatever we do, you can't run away from numbers, right? So I think that's the curiosity part. It's on us that we want to move out. But being a finance person is not easy, I understand, but you have to top up yourself with either skills that is more commercially driven or business acumen, we say it.
I just to add to that, because you're saying you take a marketeer into finance. Well, my CFO currently is an engineer by background, but she did take professional qualification. At the end of the day, it's depend on that person capability and skills. But as an accounting profession, I think we still need to uphold the importance of having the professional accreditation, because that the trust and that you can sort of make everybody on the same level playing field. So we do take engineers as well in finance, because if you look at most of my data scientists are actually engineer by background or even computer science. But the career path for them could be limited to become the CFO, for instance, because they probably have they have all the technology and digital savvy, but do we still feel that professional accreditation provides you with that level of standards that we know? It's not just about digital at the end of the day, it's about decision making. How are you taking that ethically as well? So it's a full suite, I'm afraid, trying to be selfish, but it depends on where you want to move your career. How do you want to move your career path, yeah?
The only other thing to add to both those points is just it's being intentional, right? In the example of hiring someone who's got a marketing degree and giving them that opportunity, I think that's great. I think we should do that when it makes sense. It's not always the right decision, though. If you got access to a lot of talent who have proven they can do that role, then it's a risk-reward balance. Do you hire someone that can do it or move someone internally, or do you take the risk with the future entrepreneur? But it's that conversation with them around, why do you want to do this? Future limitations if you don't invest into qualifications and study, you'll hit a ceiling. So I think, and also that point around just diversifying your skill set, it's being intentional on what you're wanting to achieve. You need to have a sense of what you're doing and why you're doing it, and then every decision after that is getting you closer to that. And that includes study and qualifications. And I think going a little bit against the status quo here, I think invest time into a qualification study that will really help you in your career, as opposed to just doing something. If you enjoy it and it's your hobby, that's completely fine. It may not make you more employable, so don't bank on that. So often I think if you've got a degree, you've got your professional qualification, you're kind of 70% there as an accountant. If you want to do your MBA or do something higher level to become a more senior leader, but the intention has to be behind it to make that decision, because it's going to be a cost as well, and time cost.
Okay, it's a 4-year loop, right? What's now being said is that skill that you learn 4 years, skill that you learn 4 years. Because also the encouragement is that, and this is a retention problem, 4 years you learn a skill, you move out to a different industry, because then you learn different skills. And then you can come back, because it makes you so much diverse in terms of your view. So interesting points. Last question before we wrap up? Yes, oh, 2 more questions. All right, I'll say yes to 2 more questions. Yes, sir.
All right. Morning to you guys. I'm going to bring this to a different perspective.
Ooh.
All right. So because now you are talking about hiring talents, retaining talents, I'm going to take it the other way around. All right. Okay. I think I'm going to pinpoint this directly to Jared. Right. Since Farouk has a lot of things he has said. You are from the recruiting agency. You see, like people like us who has been in the industry for maybe, like for more than 2 decades and so on. So he's already there. So what's next for him? He's moving into a CEO role. So I'm talking that kind of perspective where people, the leadership that we have currently, we are just talking about retaining, hiring. How about the other way around when you are actually looking for a leader? Means for me, for example, I'm just giving an example. Okay, I've already trained, developed the talents there. Now it's time for me to leave because I'm taking Farouk's route. I'm going into more. What else? I'm done in the industry. I've been in 1 or 2 industry for more than 2 decades. So what's next? So I'm moving into another role. But it's going to be tough, like what Venkat was saying. You take the hot air balloon the other way around. So now it's like a pyramid. When you talk about leaders, it's like the opportunity is very slim. It's like a pyramid where it's already at the tip, right? So for us to be, I think we are not more or less, I don't say it everyone, but most of us is not tech savvy. And when we actually forward our resume, for example, to the recruiting agency, the first one to be thrown out is us. Because we are, I think, the ATR thing, where you will scan and everything, and you don't meet the requirement, and out you go. So the new generations, they come up with fantastic resumes using whatever AIs that they have. So how do you see that we can actually fit into that?
Yeah, I think you're referring to an ATS, perhaps, yeah. Yes. Okay, it's a good question. I don't know if I've got the answer, complete answer, but I'll try my best. So I think in alignment we discussed about being intentional about the career move, it does have to make sense, okay? So if you're jumping from one industry, I might use an example, it doesn't mean this is impossible, but let's say you've spent 30, 25 years in logistics and you want to move into a bank. It's going to be very hard. It might be impossible, depending on what experience you bring, because it's not apples to apples, it's very different. So if we take away those examples, and let's say it's not a big industry move where it just wouldn't make sense, it's all about everything you do up until that point, right? So it's firstly identifying the move you want to make. Maybe you want to be an executive C-suite. It's looking at exactly the skills that you need to develop, and this can't happen immediately. You're going to need a time frame here to give yourself time to go out and develop those skills, whether it's through studying, it's through networking, it's through finding another job before you get to that final job. That'll be important. I just mentioned then, networking is incredibly important. Most people don't do enough of it, right? So actually going to events like this, you need to try and get 3 or 4 in a year, shaking people's hands, sharing cards, keeping in touch with people. I've seen a number of examples where you meet your future boss at the event. They may not hire you next week, but in 6 months, a year's time, you get to LinkedIn, you've applied for a job, and it helps you get the foot up. So all of those things are really important. When it comes to working, applying for jobs, I am acutely aware from a candidate point of view, the experience is not always great. Whether you're going directly to a company, into this black hole of applications, or you're applying to a recruitment company and not getting a call back. That's not a perfect data, and that needs to really continually improve. But from a recruitment agent point of view, we do use AI tools to help us navigate and find people. But ultimately, if you're applying for a job, we are looking at your CV, and the role we try and play is to try and bring you to life to our clients. There will definitely be times where you call me and I could say to you, this client's just not going to consider you, unfortunately, for X, Y, and Z. I think we need to be honest in that too to save everyone's time. But I also think it's just having a network, and it could be some agents who can guide you on that next path. And the skills you need to do, the people you might need to talk to, the challenges you'll face, or even if it's probably just going to be too hard and you might need to change your plan. So hopefully you can take something from that. It's a really tricky question. I have that conversation with people a lot about changing industry, changing jobs, changing function. You just have to have a plan, look at the skills, build a network, and then you sometimes have to give it time as well.
If I could just add on that, one of the things that we look at senior level, probably GM level, is around transformation leadership attributes. Because a lot of companies now are going through lots of transformation. Either it's business transformation or system transformation. So some of the attributes that we are looking at that can differentiate you is around how you, so we've got about 5 attributes that we always look out for. One here is dare to change, dare to challenge, right? Dare to challenge and change. The other one that we looked at is how do you think independently, which means that, you don't have any biasness towards certain areas. And the other one is the ability for you to unlock potential. I think unlock potential is not every finance are not quite good at, because you're just going on the books, what's right, what's wrong. But unlock potential is one of the things that we looked at. And of course, the other one, get it done. So some of the attributes that we look at our leadership, and we are also changing some leadership as well to make sure that they have these attributes to be able to move the company in a much faster transformation journey. So just to give you another tips around the importance of having transformation leadership attributes.
Thanks, Rafida. Mohan?
Good morning. One question to Encik Farouk, and based on his response, another question to the remaining 2 panelists.
Based on your response, so no tough one for you.
Okay, Encik Farouk, I think if today you run a football club, okay, and on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the capabilities of your team currently to be a sustainable winning team?
No one is from Terengganu here, right?
1 being the lowest, and 10 being simply ideal.
That's a very good question. Are you close to Malaysian sports or not? Okay, so I will rate 5. Okay. Why? Because to be very honest with you, I'm also working for Ministry of Youth and Sports, right? Our sports industry is really in bad shape. I'm being very frank, right? Because we are, our mindset is only like working like society, persatuan, We're hoping for money to come in from the grant from the government, and cash in, cash out. Basically, it's cash flow management. All of us know about cash flow management, right? So if our mindset is about getting the money from the government every year, in and out, then how are we supposed to run a business? Okay? The challenge why I took this role to Terengganu, when I talked to the Menteri Besar, Dr. Samsuri, he has that idea to change the sports of Terengganu. Right? That's why I was intrigued and I took it. I took the challenge because he wants to change the way we run sports as a business. So I'm taking it because I want to run the football club as a business. Okay? If the government is giving me 15 or 20 million a year, how are we supposed to make that money works so that we do not have to hope for another 20 million next year? The issue in our sports industry is that I will still get the 20 million next year. So how am I supposed to spend it this month? You see? So that's why I rate half, 5 out of 10.
Okay, thank you very much. At least you have the logic why you rate it at 5.
Now, based on your response?
Yeah, to the other 2 panelists. One of the things that I observe in a lot of organizations is to identify now and for the future, what are the relevant competencies required to build a sustainable winning team. In football, we have that. So if you use that as an analogy, in both Shell and also in Michael Page for your respective teams, how do you rate the on a scale of 1 to 10 again. Because I just want to share, check whether in many organizations, that conversation is not happening. The individual knows what is their KPI, but they don't know what are the ingredients and the proficiency levels required for each of the competencies for them to perform very well in their particular role. So I just want to get your feedback. Is this a common thing that you find in many organizations?
And that's to the report, right? Mid-level accelerators develop managers 5 to 15 years as strategic partners. Because one thing that we do is we're good at promoting, but we are not good at setting them up for success, in general sense. Anyone wants to take that?
So we look at a lot of the labour market data every year, and we try to ascertain why are people leaving jobs. That's really important, and a lot of that ties into the report here. You know, the top 5 don't change a lot. They tend to just move around, and it's often they don't feel they're getting paid a competitive salary. They don't feel they got a good relationship with their boss. And finally, they don't believe there's clear progression in the business. And that final one is often the dagger in the heart, because a lot of leaders, as the person leaves, will think, I communicated that progression plan that one time 2 years ago, and I thought it was very clear, and it's clear the consistency of that communication is the issue. A lot of businesses have a good plan, and then the HR department may have quarterly or mid-year or maybe annually check-ins on progression, but it's just not done consistently enough where people believe I've actually got a future here, and they have a tough day or a tough week or a tough month, and someone taps them on the shoulder and they're out, and you've lost talent. And now you're going to invest time, money, and just a risk of the next person coming in is not right. So I do really think it's the communication of the long-term plan, and I think for the individual, that specific individual, not just when they're in the business, but when they're joining the business as well is really important. And just getting that right as an attractive selling point, why you're joining the business, what's in it for you, what do the review periods look like, what skills can we offer you, and it needs to be honest, that needs to be the truth, and then there needs to be a plan with that being executed, and that will really help with building loyalty. And you know, similar to our business at Michael Page in Malaysia, our leadership team, we average 11 years. We've had people that have been here for the most part when we started 15 years ago in Malaysia. When you can get a leadership team that is still progressive, dynamic, can challenge each other, use radical candor, and then they can stay in the business for a long time, you will have better results. You will have a better culture for the most part, and you'll have an easier time hiring and retaining good talent.
Maybe just to add, I think the company needs to also invest some money in data-driven insights, right? So do you have, skill data that you have for your employees? Probably because of Shell is a big company, so we invest, technology now in each of the role that you have. You're attached to a particular job family, which gives you the kind of skills that that is needed for that particular job to be successful. At the same time, we also launched like a learning platform. So they call it, that learning platform that's easy, that's just in the morning, I can just look at my LinkedIn Learning that is tagged to Shell learning platform that I can continuously learn. So data-driven, actually, I can just go into, if I want to hire analysts, for instance, it gives you all these other people that are available, then I can see how I match. But the job profile, if you look at the word T, yeah? T is where, in finance, this is where, from the vertical point of view, this is over the years, you built your capability as a deep expertise in finance, for instance.
Technical mostly.
Technical. Yep. But as you move, with all the changes externally and the demand of your stakeholders, you need to be adding your vertical capabilities. And these vertical capabilities, you don't need to be a deep expertise in digital. You don't need to know how to code, but you need to know how to ask the right question. You need to be digitally literate. What kind of tools that can help to resolve my problems. So that's actually, you need to add your vertical, similarly like ESG and all that. So I think that's how we looked at it, becoming that deep expertise. At the same time, you're also expanding your vertical as well, which is actually needs to be added as we go through. So data-driven is very important because that also helps you in terms of retaining talent and also be able for you to selectively choose the right talent for the right leadership roles as well.
And the other last parts of it, we are coming to a closure, is that don't be afraid for you to lead from the front either. It's important that you also show yourself that you're learning and you're telling the others that you're learning with that. Because there's that deep sense of entitlement when you're at the top level, you have achieved it all and there's nothing more to get. No, it's actually the other way around. You have to learn more to show what the other generation and the ones below that. I tore my meniscus about 6 months ago, my knee issue. I love to play badminton. I had to give up badminton because I can't do impact sports. I'm a busybody. I can't stay at home and just look at the ceiling and wait. So I decided the only sport, after speaking to my physio, he said, try taking up golf. I used to be a person, golf is the most boring game ever. I said, hit the ball and you walk. What the hell's going to happen? He said, if you want to do something, that's the only sport I'll recommend you to do. So you know what? I took up golf. And you know how I learned? YouTube. And Instagram Reels and TikTok. And it was so difficult for me to go to the golf course the first time with the irons, because like everyone behind me are judging. And there are people waiting. So you know what? I didn't give a damn. I just took my first swing. Ball goes there, so what? Just smile and move on. Then go back to the Instagram Reel, learn. And I'm like, I'm pretty okay now. So as leaders, I think that the most general sense is that don't have parents that they grew up with telling them things to do. You don't want to become a parent, but develop them. And to your point, Jared, something we also don't do well, it's an interesting point. Netflix now, if you watch most of the movies, and there's something that Matt Damon said in a recent interview, he said they keep reminding the plot consistently throughout the movies now. In Netflix. Want to know why? Because people on their phone watching Netflix. People forget what the plot is. So very often they're putting the same phrases of the plot as a constant reminder. To your point, we also think we had that succession planning conversation 2 years ago, but your team are waking up and going, where am I supposed to go next? That's very thoughtful. All right, I'm just going to wrap it up, but I'm not going to wrap it up very easily for you all. I have got 5 important questions to ask. Make it 6. Rapid fire, no thinking. If you take 2 seconds, I'm moving on to the next one by pressing a buzzer in this particular order. Rules understood?
Yep.
Here we go.
Yes.
Coffee or tea, and how much do you take a day to survive?
Oh, coffee, 3 cups.
4 cups of coffee. Ramadan time, 2 cups.
Espresso only 3 cups.
2, 4, 3. Satu, acid reflux. When using Gen AI, what do you use it for most?
Constructing job briefs, job descriptions.
Copilot for my emails and key messages and summarize my meeting that I don't attend.
Research about something.
For me, acid reflux, what can I do next? One habit you picked up early in your career that you still rely on today?
Go face-to-face engagement whenever you can.
Back of envelope calculation.
Adaptation skill.
Never give up, play golf. What's one leadership skill you wish they had taught you earlier?
Be aware of active listening. Really try and do active listening as often as possible.
That.
First time right may not be always the right thing. It's okay to fail safely.
Execution is key, and also communication.
Yep. Fail safe, fail fast. Yep. Shell's principle. Yep. Your guilty pleasure way to switch off after a brutal week?
Coffee. No, I do like exercise. I'll probably go for a run. Sorry. Healthy habit.
Chocolates and cooking.
Oh, boy.
A nice burger.
One word to describe your team. One word your team would use to describe you.
Bold.
Demanding, but now I mellow down as I grow older.
Fast pace.
Crazy botak man. All right. Anyway, thank you so much. Summary of the report is one significant point. We couldn't go through that. The human differentiator, that is you. Let me summarize 5 points. 1, judgment. Technology executes. Humans judge. Earlier, we used to execute, leaders judge. Can you see how it's changing? Ethics, moving away from can we to asking this question, should we? How powerful is that? Culture, to the point that was earlier discussed, that was very well, I think, Rafida, you brought it up, right? You have to provide psychological safety. You have to, for assumptions to be asked. Because if you don't, you lose people working with you. Last, please govern machines. Don't compete with them. They're smarter. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, Google knew everything about me and everything about you. Now I fear if I ask one question to ChatGPT or Gemini, I use ChatGPT, Gemini, and another tool called Manus. I love Gemini, I play around. If I ask it one question, what do you want to say about me? I'm afraid of these answers. So we are not there to compete them, govern them. Ladies and gentlemen, fantastic applause to the panelists. And thank you. Please download the report, have a look, and get involved in our member activities and initiatives. Have a fantastic day. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Venkat, and thank you, our wonderful panelists. Let's give them another round of applause. As I mentioned in our introductions earlier, we do conduct 2 roundtables in September 2025, and 2 of our roundtable participants are actually here with us today. So I just want to take a moment to recognize the roundtable participants. One of them is Dr. Tizek. Could you please stand up and let's give her a round of applause. And another one, not forgetting Jared as well, who is also our roundtable participants. So we hope that you enjoy the discussion today, and we hope, echo what Jared mentioned, networking is very important. Stay here, network, and we have brunch. Food is very important as well. Promoting also on our event. Our next event is on 11 February. We have Yayasan Peneraju Connects with the CNY celebration as well. For your informations, for eligible candidates, you can apply Yayasan Peneraju financing scheme to study CIMA. So if you want to know more, come and join us on 11 February. All right? So thank you, and you can enjoy the food now. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, our panelists.